I am very lucky to have worked closely with our next speaker, and I'm just so thrilled that she was as excited about presenting to you today as I was to invite her. Dr. Jaya Ghosh is the director of the Coulter Translational Partnership Program at the University of Missouri and is responsible for managing all processes associated with de-risking, funding, reviewing, and tracking all Coulter projects. She also teaches an annual boot camp at the Coulter Business School and is a program manager for NIH's Concept to Clinical Commercializing Innovation, or the C3I program that many of you may be familiar with. Jaya, I'm so happy that you're here and joining us, so welcome.
Thank you so much for that kind introduction, Marisa. Can you hear me okay?
I can.
Okay, great. So let's go ahead and get started, and good afternoon, everyone. And thank you for being here today. And I just wanted to mention, I think I heard someone mention dealing with customer service at American Airlines. I felt bad for you, hope it gets resolved soon. Just wanted to say that before I got started. Anyway, I'm thrilled to virtually be here today with all of you. As Marisa mentioned, my name is Jaya Ghosh. I have an engineering background with a PhD in bioengineering, and I wear multiple hats, as you also heard her say, at the University of Missouri in Columbia, which are related to research translation through our Coulter Translational Partnership Program, our NIH Research Evaluation and Commercialization Hub, and MU's BARDA Drive Accelerator. In addition, I'm a consultant project manager for the NIH Concept to Clinic Commercializing Innovation, or C3I program. My primary roles all involve working with academic proof of concept, early stage researchers, such as many of you, or probably most of you in the audience today. I also work with early stage startups, and I'm a reviewer for NSF's SBIR STTR program. So in short, my typical workday involves project management, innovation and entrepreneurship education, and overall program management in the early stage academic biomed and biotech space. So in my current academic roles, I actually work with investigators from 9 universities spread out across the Midwest, 6 states across the Midwest. So today, I try to present to you a comprehensive picture of the experiences I have garnered over the last few years working with translational researchers such as yourselves. My topic, as you can see on the top right here, will touch upon project management best practices as that we follow in accelerating development and de-risking of academic technologies, and the importance of working with the right partners, collaborators, and stakeholders that you need. The importance of working with them. So in again successfully moving your product concepts, your ideas from bench to bedside. So if you have any questions or comments during the presentation to share, please feel free to drop them in the chat or raise your hand. I'll be happy to answer them during the presentation. If I miss it, you can blame Zoom for that, but I'll keep an eye out for that, or at the end, whichever works best. And I think the way I have, I have made my slide deck and have, I plan to talk about the slides. I will have at least a few minutes at the end of the presentation for Q&A as well. So next slide, please. So I want to start by talking a little bit about Mizzou, right, where I work at the University of Missouri. So one of Mizzou's unique strengths and expertise lies in accelerating research translation from lab to a small business readiness level as part of the lab to market pipeline. Next, please. So the University of Missouri Coulter Biomedical Accelerator, also known as the MU Coulter program, began in 2012 as a 5-year, $5 million partnership between the University of Missouri and the Wallace H. Coulter Foundation. As part of this program, in partnership with the foundation and the Coulter network at large, network of schools, 16 of them originally there, we have developed a robust education, mentorship, and program and project management infrastructure complemented by translational research funding to help accelerate the transition of academic biomedical innovations into products that can improve patient and healthcare. So the MU Coulter program is one of the 16 national programs, like I said, and is an important differentiator for us. And note that the MU Coulter program or the Coulter process that we follow also serves as the basis for the NIH Concept to Clinic Commercializing Innovation, or C3I program, which is usually a supplement grant that is awarded by NIH to its innovative RO1 SBIR STTR grantees to help them validate their unmet need, assess their business opportunity, and build compelling pitch presentations to secure support from potential investors and other business and strategic partners. Next, please. The University of Missouri also leads one of 8 NIH Research Evaluation and Commercialization Hubs, known as the Midwest Biomedical Accelerator Consortium, or EMBARC. EMBARC, a $4 million 4-year partnership between the University of Missouri as the lead and the NIH REACH, is an extension of our Coulter training and funding infrastructure and was set up in 2019 to serve a network of 16 institutions across 6 states in the Midwest. Next, please. And finally, the University of Missouri Midwest Bioaccelerator, a biomedical advanced research and development authority division of Research, Innovation, and Ventures Accelerator, quite a mouthful there, or BARDA Drive Accelerator program, which was funded in 2019, also provides wraparound support to early and late stage biosecurity-related healthcare innovations and discoveries. Through our BARDA Drive Accelerator, we are connected to a network of 12 other accelerators across the US that work closely with BARDA. Okay, next, please. So before I start talking about the topic that I'm here to cover today, and share some of the best practices with you, I'll start by pointing you toward this publication authored by our colleagues and friends from the Center for Applied Economics and Strategy at RDI International that talks about best practices used by 11 NIH Centers for Accelerated Innovation and the Research Evaluation and Commercialization Hubs programs. So the publications describes best practices used by these sites, including the importance of program and project management and how, and I quote, "In the absence of this support, a funded investigator could drift into hypothesis-driven research and away from the validation or prototyping work funded by the programs." So project management, working with external stakeholders, which are all very integral to any proof of concept funding, any product development plan. These are still fairly new concepts in academia, right? And for the rest of my presentation today, as I mentioned during my opening slide, I will talk about best practices, tips, tricks, however you prefer to see them, that are proven to work in streamlining academic proof of concept research, in preparing you to make the best of your grant funding, available resources and ecosystem support, such that at the end of your funding period, you have a compelling data package in place and a story to tell that the next funding source would like to continue supporting. So that's your main goal, right? To get to a point where someone else jumps in and wants to help you or help an executive you have discovered or found or you have been able to put in place, continue with commercialization of what you're developing. Next slide, please. So this is a busy slide, but it is meant to provide a comprehensive overview of the program and project management processes that we have adapted from our Coulter program and expanded on here at MU. As you can see, our process spans across a couple of years, including program introduction, business education, project selection, funded project management, and then support to enable successful exit or graduation from the program. So we have found that introducing our applicants to this unique proof of concept funding process, giving them the chance to participate in hands-on training through our bootcamp offerings, and preparing them for proposal submission and interaction with our external board of reviewers that makes funding decisions, provides our innovators with the time and resources required to help them develop a robust business case for translational research funding. So time and resources are key here. And every stage you see here is an important step in de-risking that process. So projects that are funded next are actively managed, and this helps ensure project tracking and alignment with milestone deliverables. Projects that don't meet milestones and cannot quickly make a pivot may be terminated and encouraged to return to the program once they have mitigated their risks. Active management of funded projects also helps with seamless transfer to support ecosystems that can help with follow-on funding opportunities. And all of this, there are really, these are columns here that are separate, but all of these kind of flow into each other, right? There's a lot of back and forth, but overall active management is very important. So throughout this stage-gated process, management is key, whether it's in proposal preparation or tracking of project progress toward funded milestones. And finally, in helping transition successful projects toward out-licenses, small business, funding opportunities, etc. Another factor that plays a huge role through these 5 steps and beyond and before even is regular interactions with the innovation and entrepreneurship community, subject matter experts, consultants, and mentors to ensure that full-fledged, individualized wraparound support is available to academic researchers such as yourselves, who are embarking on a journey very different from your own training and experience and expertise. So, and successful translation can be ensured by engaging these resources and experts as you get started with the process. So the earlier you integrate these best practices into your research translation journey, the earlier you learn to remove risks associated with this lengthy and demanding process and maximize your chances of success. So during the course of the presentation, I'll refer to the work we do as both project and program management, the distinction being post and pre-funding. But the key concept here is that every project from its inception is provided individualized support through careful management. So any questions, comments, or thoughts that anyone would like to share before I delve in deeper? And again, feel free to, no bad questions, because these are all probably new concepts, new ideas, new terms you might be hearing. So feel free to, drop it in the chat or raise your hand and you can ask me anything you want to. Okay, if not, let me go ahead and continue. And again, please feel free to drop your comment or question in the chat throughout the length of the presentation. So one of the most important parts of my role as a manager is to manage expectations, right, with projects and investigators and their teams. And setting up applicants to understand how the process of translation is different from, say, typical hypothesis-driven research is, to me, the first step in the right direction. So to get into the right mindset, the first rule I want all my teams who come to me and probably for you to remember also, having that mindset shift as you start working on your proof of concept work, is that proof of concept or product development funding mechanisms or, overall the process, the journey are distinctly different from typical research grants, right, which you're more used to as academics. So the specific goal of this kind of research funding is to achieve quantifiable, quantitative, milestone or deliverable driven outcomes. When you think of translating your research into a product, starting to define your target product profile, technology product profile, whatever you call it, is also important, as it helps shape a thorough understanding of the product under development, its desired characteristics and features, studies and activities that must be completed to demonstrate the product's performance, efficacy, and safety, and the features of the product that will provide a competitive advantage over both emerging tech and existing technologies in the market, existing products in the market. So note the emphasis on product, right? Not scientific research. That is translation aimed at de-risking your research. So from day one, your goal should be to build a product that someone will find useful and be willing to pay for. So, set your mind to building a product and not just doing research. And in research mostly, and this is something which was, very interesting when I chat with our researchers, some of the things they say, and I try to incorporate that here. Somebody had once told me that, Jaya, in research, we try to prove something works, and you are coming and telling me, prove it doesn't work. So that is a disconnect there for me. So in research, mostly, you aim to make something work, right? But here, the science works, that's done, but you're figuring out whether the product concept will work too. And the point here is, while you can still continue your research, you can choose to discontinue your product development efforts based on the findings of your carefully designed proof of concept experiments with go, no-go inflection points. So if the science works, but the product idea won't make clinical or business sense, within the context of your grant, then it will be a successful failure. And you can redirect your efforts and time into other translational research endeavors, because I can imagine a lot of you probably are innovators, want to be serial innovators. So you can, without like I think I heard somebody else say when I joined the call, without wasting much of your time and resources into things that might not work, you shift your energy and work on things, work on new things and figure them out. So it is also the right time to start thinking about figuring out the target market, right? So as opposed to the entire market that is there, understanding how intellectual property protection works, collaborating with your tech transfer offices to complete due diligence in your innovation, as well as understanding regulatory and reimbursement requirements as applicable. And these are very unique, right, to the healthcare industry. So understanding them. And I'll cap this introduction again by repeating that this is not your typical grant. This will not be your typical grant. This will not be aimed at just publishing a paper or presenting a poster, which again, I understand are integral parts of your research process, or just even advancing the science, but actually getting started on developing a product that the market needs and wants. Next slide, please. So for us, one other thing I've noticed is, and I think it's applicable to everyone, education is important, right? Again, like I said, this is not the typical training you receive when you get trained as an academic. So education is important for developing a strong translational research plan. And this education, like I said, is different from what you have, what you are used to. And both in developing that plan and executing it. And I have seen both first-time applicants and serial entrepreneurs find our hands-on training approach through homework presentations complemented by lectures from subject matter experts useful. I'll quickly summarize the important topics we cover through our education program here. As you can see here, I'm sorry, the text is probably a little small. Unmet need validation, understanding value propositions, stakeholder validation, market analysis, business validation, FDA regulatory requirements, how IP and tech transfer work, reimbursement, how to formulate deliverable-driven milestones, also known as killer experiments, and the art of investment style pitching. So for our therapeutics projects, we also actually bring in experienced speakers who talk about the drug development pathway, basics of CMC, etc. So these are basic topics that are applicable to medtech and biotech innovation. And if you don't have structured educational programs at your institutions, you can access these lectures for free through multiple Coulter and Reach program websites. So there are some books out there as well that you might find useful. So if anyone is interested, please feel free to send me an email. I'll share my email ID at the end of the presentation, and I'll be happy to share information about some of the resources that I have found helpful over the years. Next, please. So our project selection process is also unique in that external members with industry, investment, small business, and translational research experience and expertise review our proposals and listen to investment style pitches from our applicants and make funding decisions based on those. So the list of topics below, as you can see here, again, very much in alignment with what you saw with our education program, including understanding of unmet need, defining proposed product and vision product, sizing of the market, understanding of competitive landscape, details about intellectual property status and due diligence completed, differentiation of your product, laying out your regulatory and reimbursement strategies as applicable, funding requirements within the proof of concept framework, funding program, and beyond, detailed project plan with quantifiable go, no-go decision points, and potential risks and mitigations, not only in terms of scientific, but technical and personal, but also market and commercialization, very important. So these are all taken into consideration by our external board during the project selection for funding process. So this review pipeline gives our applicants a chance to hear from experts who have a solid understanding of the early stage de-risking process and can provide guidance to researchers from the perspective of future funders and potential strategic partners, which is a huge value add when it comes to formulating a competitive translational research plan. So, whether, I'm talking about our selection process, but even while our teams are getting educated through bootcamp, while they're preparing their proposals, I bring in experts, right, who can sit down with this, with our researchers one-on-one and help them kind of formulate, figure out some of these things, like how should a proposal, how different should it look like from a typical proposal? So a lot of that is subject matter expertise, and it's not really easily or usually available in an academic environment. So I bring in a lot of external people who help me get that, or help my teams get that done. And to you, if you're an individual who are working on this, I would say within your network, outside, within your ecosystem, if you don't have someone helping you with that, try to find those people and make sure that you get their inputs as you develop your own proposal. Next slide, please. So management of funded projects for our hub includes meeting with teams on at least a monthly basis to track project progress against not only technical milestones, but overall go-to-market strategy. So as a project manager, I truly enjoy attending research updates or lab meetings because that's where I feel researchers are most comfortable. And I start talking about business and they're like, whoa, let me talk about the research. But, it's a training process. It's a familiar, they get familiar with it, but it's nice. I always enjoy meeting with researchers and hearing about the science that they do. But overall, also looking at the go-to-market strategy, right? Because it's like I said, it's a continuous process. It's never that one starts here and then ends here. But of course, there are value inflection points at which you want to trigger the next steps. But it's always a continuous process where it's in your thoughts, in your mind, and you know that once I reach this step, I have to start with the next step in the process. And that step might be just even meeting with people and building your relationships and then getting to them when you need their support. So it's a nice, and you'll see when I summarize this, it takes a village. It literally takes a village, and you will need to work with a lot of people to again make sure that you are setting yourself up for success. So as a project manager, like I said, I enjoy meeting with the researchers and get their, maybe join their lab meetings or overall research updates with my teams, and that also helps me serve as a channel of communication between them and the program. This is also valuable as technical challenges may occur during project execution, and these need to be identified early to prevent delays in completing milestones. So unforeseen delays or unexpected results may disrupt milestone timelines, and under such circumstances, we and our experts work with the project team to either update their milestone endpoints and timelines or identify appropriate plans to pivot. So in addition to technical challenges, an effective project management plan includes facilitating meetings with key stakeholders to mitigate product development risks, like I mentioned, exploring follow-on funding and strategic partnership opportunities as required, right? So you might have value inflection points where you want to then trigger that next step. So in summary, a project manager has a thorough understanding of the technical and business needs of your project and is able to provide that personalized support based on the needs and challenges of the team and the technology that you're developing. So if you have someone dedicated project manager or someone maybe within your group who's doing that, if they could, if they have that mindset shift and they look at this as something that they need to manage and not just the research, I think that could be of real value to you as you go through this process. So finally, as you can see on this slide, we also implement our own award terms and conditions upfront with funded projects to help set project funding as well as management expectations and goals. Next slide, please. So management of project, like I said, activities in the proof of concept phase might be handled. So that is handled by our program, but beyond that might be handled by entities such as technology transfer offices, entrepreneurs in residence, business incubators, tech accelerators, and other places like that. So in this phase, researchers might require, such as yourselves, might require a lot of specific guidance on how to stay involved, and more importantly, to what extent, right? In translating their technology out of the lab, in helping identify the right executives or strategic partners, spinning out companies, pitching to investors, writing competitive small business grants, and more, right? So comprehensive wraparound support at this phase is instrumental in transferring technology out of the academic setting into entities that can concentrate solely on commercialization with access to funding and other resources required to operate a successful business. So this is an important step where a project manager who works with you initially during the proof of concept phase would play a key role in helping your project transition smoothly toward the next phase in the commercialization process. That is, there is that connection of knowledge between what was happening, how things have been since inception, where they stand now, and where they should go. So this is really all a continuous process and very helpful for someone to be able to manage this overall. Next slide, please. So in this slide, I would like to bring to your attention some project management resources. Some of you are, maybe a lot of you are already aware, that are available on the Catalyze website. Next, please. So the first topic shown here in the screen grab provides tips on formulating effective milestone and deliverable-driven research plans. That is, how to define and achieve quantifiable technical goals such that these benchmarks and milestone outcomes can subsequently attract the follow-on funding and partnerships needed to continue commercialization of the technology. Next, please. So incorporation of project management principles and project managers, as you have already seen, are crucial to getting the support you need to complete your milestones successfully and in a timely fashion. So successful definition and execution of project milestones, both technical and business, can be ensured by implementation of program and project management plans, starting from engagement, that is, during the application process, through management of funded projects, and while preparing for follow-on opportunities. That's kind of the life cycle you see within the academic environment. I recommend you take a look at this section to better understand how guidance through the life cycle of the project, from application to project execution, can help improve your outcomes through active project management. Next, please. And additional details on developing competitive proposals for proof of concept funding and setting expectations for projects prior to funding and kickoff can be found under this nuts and bolts section. And finally, next please, the resources page, as the name suggests, lists a number of important tools. You'll find that they are basic tools, again, some or all of which are probably available to you at no cost, that can be used to better manage and track your project progress, both in terms of technical product development oriented deliverables and your overall go-to-market strategy. So again, all these tools, all these best practices, tips, tricks you will learn today will be applicable throughout your involvement in this translational research process. So before we switch gears, because this is my final slide on project management, and I'll go into more details regarding external stakeholders next. So does anybody have any questions, comments, or thoughts that they would like to share? I know it's like late in the day, but please don't be shy. If you have anything to share, feel free to drop in the chat. Happy to talk to you about it. And I see a lot of enthusiastic faces here. Thank you for joining. But yeah, please, again, you can feel free to share now or share later during the Q&A session, whatever works best for you. Okay, so if there is, okay, let's go ahead and get to the next slide here. So as you've heard me mention in a number of slides earlier during the presentation, right? So multiple groups will be key to one, formulation of milestones and deliverable-driven product development research plans, and two, developing a solid go-to-market strategy. So remember that product development is a journey, right? And as with all journeys, you need to find the right people at the right stage to ensure successful completion of your goals. And to that end, my suggestion would be to engage with your stakeholders early on in the process, right? Don't wait until tomorrow if something can be done today. Start engaging with this. And this is a lot of work, but if your end goal is to really translate something out of the lab and make it into a product, start engaging with your ecosystem, with all these important stakeholders as early and as often as you can. So once you have identified the right people, interact with them regularly, that is, work towards building sustainable, meaningful relationships. And I will emphasize this, building relationships, right? Because sometimes we only go to people when we need something, but it's important that as you undertake this journey, you start building those relationships so that when you get to them, they are incentivized, right? They feel incentivized, whether monetarily or as a mentor, an executive, or an advisor who has really bought into what you're doing and can play a meaningful role in your product development journey. So build those relationships, build that village around you, and start working with people. But it's very important that you don't do this in a silo. Whether it's, daily steps, maybe talking to your tech transfer office, that's the first step. Then finding out, are there local, business incubators, accelerators, maybe things that are associated with their universities. Maybe there are local ones that are in the community, anyone, or even these support programs provided by NIH, NSF, others. Work with them and see how you can start building those relationships, building that network as you embark on this journey. So I've broken down the types of stakeholders into two categories here, but there will be a lot of overlaps between the two and at different stages, right? And remember that these groups are by no means limited to distinct stages of your projects, and they can play similar or varied roles during the course of your product development cycle, depending on your requirements. So for stakeholder validation, I've mostly chosen groups that will have a major say in defining your value propositions. And I know you've heard about that, I think, in a talk before me. So that is, they will, again, value propositions, simply put, why will anyone fork over good money to buy or invest in what you're offering? So stakeholder groups that will play a fundamental role in defining your product concept. And this is unique to the healthcare space, that you have so many stakeholders that have a say in what is bought, what is used, what is paid for. So and these, so these are, and again, these will include end users broadly, who might be distinct, like I said, from providers or purchasing decision makers, right? So a clinician might want to use something, but the healthcare system might need to buy it. So there are like different players in this system that have their unique roles. So for most products, and then of course there's the payer, right? So for most products and services that are reimbursable, payers such as Medicare and private insurance companies will also play a key role. Key opinion leaders or influencers, right, are usually crucial to product adoption. If your product will be regulated by the FDA, understanding their requirements, their classifications, etc., will play a critical role as well. Extensive reimbursement expertise might also be required for products or procedures where current reimbursement codes might not cover what you're developing. So then, getting those experts in place early on is very important. An understanding of follow-on funding opportunities, intellectual property protection and technology transfer, strategic partnership opportunities through subject matter experts all form part of the go-to-market strategy, as the goal of proof of concept funding is to advance the technology toward commercialization. So the left side, which you see, are all stakeholders you need to talk to as you get started and through the process, and you will probably continue talking to a lot of them as you advance in commercializing the technology. Now, on the right side, as you can see, the other type of stakeholders will be ecosystem or wraparound support providers who will continue to provide product development insights along with specialized stakeholders. So I always include the ones on the left, on the right as well, because like I said, you continue working with them, but you will also need specialized stakeholders or specialized support groups once you are have completed your proof of concept work, such as business accelerators, incubators, and small business development and support programs that will play an integral role in transitioning the technology out of the academic setting into an entity that can continue developing and commercializing the product. So overall, again, a lot of different players that you will need to interact with, that you will need to build relationships with as you move forward. Next slide, please. So here's okay, great, thank you. So here's an example of what stakeholders might look like for a particular product idea, right? This is again an example, and you can see the source there. You can see categories such as users, providers, payers, follow-on funding sources, key opinion leaders there, and influencers, regulatory agencies, and stuff like that. And I'll give you all a minute to review this figure carefully. And again, you see there are groups and then particular subgroups under them, which are important. And as I see, even for things like providers, as you can see how it talks about different provider groups. And I've also seen even among clinicians, right? Sometimes you might be working on a product that requires inputs from different categories of clinicians, might be surgeons, might be pathologists, might be nurse practitioners. So again, being aware of all the stakeholders in a particular setting who will have a say, who will have an influence in adoption of your technology, or who on a daily basis deals with the problems that you're trying to solve. So next slide, please. So I just want to plug in an important exercise that will follow my presentation. So it's on stakeholder mapping for your product idea, and very similar to the example you saw in my previous slide, right? So using these guiding questions that the RTI team will share with you, you will be able to use the time allotted to determine key stakeholder groups who will be able to help you figure out whether there is a market for your envisioned product. And as you can see here, end users, right? Things like who needs to have buy-in for your device therapy. So, key opinion leaders, influencers, maybe providers who may be interested in outcome, maybe patients, maybe sometimes it's clinicians, maybe they are, they do something which is not as efficient as it should be. Who will influence other stakeholders, who is involved in product testing and safety efficacy evaluation, who will regulate your product, are there organizations or foundations associated with your research, or even with the patient population that you're serving, and who is in charge of reimbursement? So all these questions and more, as you start thinking and as you start exploring, start to think of what does a typical setting, clinical setting, or the setting that in which you want to serve the patient or solve the problem, what does the setting look like, and who all are the players in that setting that will be impacted by what you're developing, and how can they have a role in adoption of your technology, of your envisioned product. So next slide, please. So in this slide, I'll walk you through some do's and don'ts while working on your stakeholder validation. So talking to stakeholders can be hard. So having a structured plan in place helps a lot. Next, please. As you embark on your, next, please. Okay, perfect. So as you embark on your customer discovery or stakeholder validation process, these are mostly interviews and could be focus groups and stuff like that. Prepare conversation or interview guides for each stakeholder group. Next, please. While you would want to hear, while you want your interaction to be organic, there should be a structured approach to using your interviews to validate your unmet need, product market fit, etc. And toward that, you want to ask open-ended questions and encourage the interviewee to do most of the talking and explain their pain points and expectations to you, right? So remember that you will not be trying to sell your product to your stakeholders at this stage and in this phase. This is not about marketing. It's about understanding the unmet need and how to design a product that your customer will want and need and use. Next, please. So it is important when you do these interviews that you document your findings. And when you have these conversations, document your findings, right? These interviews could prove to be a treasure trove of information. Some of them might be unexpected, like aha moments. So make sure you're taking notes actively, or if the interview is okay with it, recording your conversation, so you can later transcribe and summarize your findings. And finally, next please, most important, you would want to analyze these findings and translate them into actionable items that would inform your product development plan and get to market strategies. Which is the most important part is, there's a lot of work going into this. And I've sometimes seen, as a busy investigator, as a busy academic, professor in your role, you might not have the time, but I've seen graduate students, postdocs play an amazing role in doing some of this work, doing some of this legwork, and then bringing that work, the results to you so that you can sit down, analyze, and find out what is the actionable outcome from this. It's very, very important that you do this in a structured way and use the findings to inform your overall plan. And as I said to you earlier, talking to external stakeholders will be an integral part of your product development process. So getting used to picking up the phone and talking to your key players, having your students or postdocs do it from day one could be the difference between a successful product launch and an idea that has no takers. Okay, next please. So this is my last content slide of this presentation. And in this one, I'll mostly be providing a laundry list of ecosystem or wraparound support entities that you would want to build sustainable relationships with as you move forward with your commercialization efforts post completion of your proof of concept milestones. Next, please. So ecosystem resources and stakeholders that will be key to successful translation or graduation out of your lab include technology transfer offices that can help with identifying, engaging, and negotiating with potential licensing partners. Next, please. Advisors and other entrepreneurs and executives could provide business insights. Next, please. While business accelerators, incubators will provide support with small business formation, pitch coaching, etc. Next, please. Consultants are equally important as they will bring specific subject matter expertise to the table. The healthcare industry, as I said, is highly regulated and has very specific needs. So having conversations with those entities is very helpful from the get-go. Next, please. Small business support programs can offer specific support with non-dilutive funding, such as federal small business grants. And as an early stage product developer, you will find them playing a key role in your go-to-market strategy. And I do that all the time. I tell my teams that please go and talk to the program officers, right? Identify your IC, identify the program officer who is in charge of the SBIR, STTR awards, the R21s, and go and talk to them, figure out what is getting funded, right? What would reviewers want to see, and then taking your data package from your proof of concept, then present it in a way that makes your application more competitive. Next, please. There are also various investors, depending on what stage of readiness level you're at, that are interested in different levels of technology readiness. And there are ones that might be interested in early stage pre-seed or seed funding. And I'm increasingly seeing some of them mostly on the coasts, though there are some in the middle of the country as well. So you can also help figure out and identify those investors and prepare to pitch to them when you're ready. Again, build those relationships through the project funding process so that as soon as you're done, you can go out to them and present to them and see if they're interested in funding you. And next, please. Finally, I encourage you to look within your own network as well. I have seen multiple projects in my network that have recruited collaborators and been awarded sponsored research agreements through deliberate and targeted outreach within their existing networks. You sometimes think that, no, I really don't know anyone who's there, but sit down, look through that list and see if there is someone who can be provide a connection to, say, a company or something. So it is, you have more connections than you realize. You have a stronger network than you realize. So do look within as well. So in summary, work closely with your ecosystem. And if one is not there, work on developing your own so that you can set yourself up for success. So next and final slide. So next, please. Yeah. In closing, I hope that the entire process or elements of what I shared today can be incorporated into your projects. I want to leave you with the message that it takes a village to raise a business. And the successful beginnings of a business can happen in your lab through guided completion of your proof of concept research work and formulation of a practical go-to-market strategy. So as you get started with your product development work, also start identifying and or building that village around you so that your chances of success can be maximized. Be prepared to learn, work closely with all your relevant stakeholders and to address all kinds of challenges you face, some of which you might be able to handle yourself, but for others, you will need your village. You don't need those specific subject matter experts who can help you with that. And finally, I know this is a lot of stuff that to take in. I do believe that innovation and entrepreneurship are hard, but they're also exciting and rewarding. So hope that you get to enjoy the process. Thank you all for your time today. I'm happy to take any questions or hear your thoughts on the topics I covered. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Jaya. I knew your presentation was going to be amazing, and it sure was. So as Jaya said, we'd love to take questions at this point. And Andre, I see your hand up. Go ahead and
Hi, Jaya.
Hi, Andre. I'm sorry. I think you were the one with the American Airlines problem. I hope it's
yes. I often put on a speaker customer service and do something else. So first of all, it's great presentation, and I see the changes in Columbia, Missouri University. If you just dig out 20 years on the second from the left pillar, you will find a piece of my heart. So, and I have a question actually. If we're talking about the management of the project, how to approach the situation when you have several institutions, and one of the institutions obviously is University of Missouri Columbia, and the person there is George Smith, well-known Nobel Prize winner. If you look at the Nobel Prize in Chemistry 2018, George Smith, and I worked with him way before he became the Nobel Prize winner, and he helped me in my research. So this is one institution. Another institution in Michigan, and of course, obviously, the third one is here in Texas, and there is one more in Belgium. So all these efforts are focused on development of new treatment for orphan disease. What would be your advice? And we can do it offline. What would be your advice how to coordinate all these institutions? Because now we come into the preclinical data collection, and there is a good chance that, say, phage display peptides. This is what George Smith is. He's the father of phage display. So phage display peptides, which he helped me he and Susan Deutscher, maybe and Bill Falk, all the names. So helped to develop. They could be potentially used for novel therapeutic, and if preclinical studies and toxicity studies would be favorable, we can move it forward to the clinical trials. So how to coordinate the four institutions for this good purpose? And it's not about money; it's about patients. The middle of your stakeholders were interested in patients, because who else?
And Andre, I was going to say that it's beyond my pay grade, because I don't know how. I've never managed a Nobel laureate before, but it's a very interesting and pertinent question. I'm glad you brought that up. So how do you do it currently? Is it mostly just emails and meetings? How do you usually?
Well, it is a long-term project. I'm in good contact with Belgium, right? George is busy with other things, and we're just using his help, which he provided for us years, 15 years ago. But it comes to the situation when we proved the concept, and now we're testing the actually products which were selected with the help of Belgium, and right. It is a little bit complicated. Nothing is patented here. Right, there is no IP, because nobody believes that it could be used as effective treatment. But right now, FDA come to the approval peptides for treatment, and we have preclinical data with different peptides which actually shows effect, and we hope that the George's, we call it Nobel Prize peptide in our lab, We'll be working too, and we select something which could be moved forward. So
Right.
what would be the next step? Imagine for a second we see this peptide. What do we do?
Okay. So you know what, Andrea, I think since you mentioned IP and everything, maybe you and I can talk offline, because I don't know if that would be, yeah.
Thank
So, you will have my email and I can drop it in the chat, but I'm happy to, and you have someone at the University of Missouri, so this is all protected. It should be fine, but I'm happy to chat with you offline and see if I can help in any way.
Yes, and see George Smith, says him hello.
Yes, yeah, absolutely.
Thank you so much. And
great,
good luck. It's great development. I don't remember anything looking like that, say, almost 20 years ago. And now.
Yes, and it sounds like a long time coming, right? And very interesting and could be very beneficial, right? So I'm happy to help. Thank you for bringing that up.
Yes, it's interesting. So it's almost an offer. If we will see result, I will come to you and ask you to help to manage this project. How about that?
I'm absolutely happy to.
You still have time. We're still working on the line.
Yes. And let's see if we can. Yeah, absolutely happy to help. Thank you.
Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you. And Malene, we'll go to you for a final question before we move on to our next activity.
Thanks, Martha. And thank you, Jaya. I loved your presentation. And I especially love the analogy of it takes a village, because it's certainly applicable here as our cohort of investigators and innovators are developing their technology and reaching their milestones. We have a diverse cohort of PIs with us. We have those that are developing devices, therapeutics and other therapies, combination products, and also research tools and animal models. For those who might not be thinking about the broader marketplace or external stakeholders yet, what advice do you have about thinking about those stakeholders now at this early stage, especially for those who might be a bit early in their thinking of going to market?
And are you just to clarify, so are you referring to all kinds of products, or maybe more like research tools that are probably don't have that broader market? So
more so the latter. There are some investigators that are developing research tools or animal models. So it's a bit of a different scenario. So is there any advice that you have for those types of investigators?
Absolutely. No, great question. I think, the stakeholder groups, like Malene very appropriately pointed out, the stakeholder groups I talked about are mostly, again, clinical solutions, right? But for this, your stakeholders might be other research organizations, right? Your stakeholders might be your ultimate buyers, acquirers might be Sigma Aldrich. I mean, all these other places. So everything, great question again. And you personalize, right? You streamline or you personalize your stakeholder groups to your application, right? So, go out there and see. So the one best step is to start by, if you're developing a research tool, right? So see that who could be a potential user, right? Will this be used in, say, a clinical trial, right? To maybe track, right, patient progress from a therapy? Or is this something that is used in a lab setting, right, for something special, for some special experimentation? So first go out and think who will be using this, and then track those stakeholders down. And you are lucky, probably you don't have to deal with the regulatory and reimbursement, but you might still have a lot of different stakeholder groups there. Like a researcher might like something, but the purchasing might go to the university. And I don't know, I'm making things up, but still always remember that there could be multiple stakeholder groups responsible for use, adoption, and anything else of what you're developing. So be aware and make sure that you map it out. Think of all the different people, all the different groups that can play a role in adoption and commercialization and development, everything of your technology.
Great advice. Thank you.
Thank you. And I know I thought my presentation would be shorter than this, but thank you for the extra time. And I know you have the mapping, the mapping thing coming up. So good luck to everyone. And I can stay around if you want me to, or whatever works for all of you.
Awesome. Thank you so much for your presentation. We really appreciate it. And obviously a lot of helpful hints and tricks that you were able to share with the investigators. So we really appreciate your time and for you sharing your expertise out. So thank you so much.
Thank you, everyone, and good luck.